And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. It's actually lacrosse night on the Pete Mezzetti Show, and we've got another panel of experts with me this evening. So with me this evening is, again, Jim May from Brantford Boys Lacrosse. Coach May, welcome back. Good to see you again. And sitting next to Coach May is John Reba, who is the Wesleyan Boys Lacrosse coach, and let's be known that Wesleyan won the national championship of boys lacrosse this past season. Coach, welcome. How are you?
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And on the end, we actually switched out right now. We have legendary coach and all-around great guy, Frank Barron.
Good to be here, Pete.
Frank, welcome. I got you. I got you, buddy. I got you, buddy. So how is everybody tonight?
Great.
We got for this show. We got a different panel of experts. And we're going to talk about lacrosse, we're going to talk about the history of lacrosse, and we're just going to have a heck of a conversation for the next half hour.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
So, Coach Reba, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what the sport of lacrosse means to you.
Sure. I grew up in Farmingdale, New York, Long Island, so fortunate to play lacrosse for, since sixth grade. They had a good program on Long Island. I think, it was a hotbed certainly, so we got to play at a good high level. But I was really drawn to football, to be honest with you. So football was something that I decided I wanted to do when I got to college. Came across a great program in University of New Haven. Coach Mark Whipple at the time kind of got us through, and they had a big season the year before, and they won a beat in Central Florida and had some really cool things going on. And so I was really drawn to the program and decided that's the route I was going to go in. And then I got and the other issue that I couldn't do at the time was lacrosse at that point was at a Division III level, and football was a Division II level. So the problem is you're stuck because you can't be a scholarship athlete and play Division III sport. So fortunate enough for me, my last year at New Haven, that rule changed and it became Division II lacrosse. So excellent. The lacrosse coach at the time, Anthony Larico, great guy. He offered me like Toads tickets or something to come out for the lacrosse team, and I took it, because again it was a great way, and I figured it was going to be my last time to play, kind of, done with my college football career. Do something in the spring. Was able to play lacrosse that year, and then stayed on for a graduate year as a coach for the football team, and played another year. Got to play with this great guy over here, Jim May. Had a lot of fun doing that, and then still was kind of coaching football. Went from New Haven after a couple years of coaching to Brown University, and then I got the job after a year at Brown at Wesleyan, and been there for 23 years now. So. And it's been, coached college football at Wesleyan for 12 years. And that was fun, but with the recruiting and everything else, it got really, really busy. So I was able to focus a little bit more on the lacrosse piece, and been doing that ever since. It's been great opportunity.
And Coach May, what do you have to interject?
I'm still excited that you put me in the category of these two guys to my left.
I know.
I owe you a lot for that. I'm sure you did that for that reason, Pete.
Of course I did.
Okay, I'm starting to learn how this goes here. What do you want to know? Tell you anything you want.
So you and Coach Reba played football together.
Well, when I was there at that time, I really was. I didn't play as much as him because I was an underclassman. But I did get to I did get on the dress squad each game, and I did play a little bit here and there. We had a great year in '92, though. We went to the national semifinals. We did lose down there to Jacksonville State, right?
Yep. Jacksonville.
Wow.
Yep.
That was at the North Alabama field. That was a rough loss. I believe it was 4th and 1. We got stuffed. I remember that. John was not the one carrying the ball. Probably should have been, but all great times. And ever since, we've been friends, and I've known him the whole time.
Wow. Coach Frank,
yes.
Tell me something. The history of lacrosse and what lacrosse means to you.
I'll just give you a background about how I got involved with lacrosse.
All right.
My grandparents lived across the street from Yale Bowl and across from Yale Field. So growing up in the 50s, I got a chance in the spring to go to lacrosse games. And that's where I became first interested in this sport that was played with sticks and balls. It was very fascinating as a young kid, 7, 8 years old, to go to those Yale games very early on before the Cox Cage Stadium, where Reese Stadium is now, was just a field. So that's how I got my interest in lacrosse. The other thing is, through Boy Scouts, I became interested in lacrosse even more because of the Native American creators game, of which lacrosse is. It's called the creators game because for the Native American people, the First Nation people, it's really not a sport, it's part of their heritage. And so consequently, when we use the word, the Indian word, the Native First Nation word, begataway, which means the bumping of hips, this is a great medicine for the Native Americans. And I became interested in that and researched that as I got older. I came to lacrosse on my own in a roundabout way. I played football in high school at East Haven High School for a legendary coach, Coach Frank Crisafi. And I went out to Ohio to play football. And I did play football at a small school, D3 school, Defiance College. Just so happened that the president of the college was a graduate of Johns Hopkins. And there was a club lacrosse program, which many of the football players played. And so, in the off season of football, my football buddy said, "Come on and play lacrosse. We'll teach you how to play." Well, I had already had my own wooden sticks from Yale University. I had made friends with the manager there, and so I had a lot of broken sticks that were repaired. They were wooden sticks at the time, and we were making a transition into plastic heads and plastic sticks at the time. So I started playing lacrosse as well too. I got injured in football and eventually started playing lacrosse full time, and then coached it actually. I went to Defiance College and went over to Bowling Green State University, which had a really great lacrosse program, a lot of guys from Long Island, upstate New York, and I was an assistant coach there, just really as a young man just out of college. And so that's where I got my start. This is going all the way back now, a long time, to 1969 through 1972. So I will be coaching as a lacrosse coach. This spring 2019 will be my 47th year as a lacrosse coach. I coached football for 35 years in Ohio and at Daniel Ann High School. Just had a great experience doing that. And really, I coached football at hand to recruit players to play lacrosse. I was the head coach for 20 years, from 2000 through really 1999.
Wow.
And then I decided I wanted to have my son, who was just coming up, play his lacrosse in Branford. And so I resigned at hand, and I said to my friend Brian Atkins, could I come over and assist you and be your assistant coach at Branford High School, which is a brand new program. Brian, I think, was flabbergasted. I met him at actually a restaurant, Jalapeno Heaven, when I told him this. And he said, "Are you serious? You're going to come from hand and be my assistant?" And I said, "Yeah, and I'm going to bring along my assistant, Jim May, and another assistant, Jason Dittert, and we're going to start a youth league in Branford and a girls program at the same time." And everybody said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" I said, "Watch, we'll do it." And within 3 years, we had a state championship team, which was the most amazing event in my coaching career, to help build a program and within 3 years have a state champion. That was the consummate for me. So that's how I got started.
And then you met Chris Hyland, and then the next chapter is history.
Well, the chapter with Chris Hyland came in not in a roundabout way. Chris was the captain of the Han High School lacrosse team previous to when I got there.
Okay.
And I knew his connection. He was also a football captain as well, too. So I knew his connection because of the football and lacrosse connection. And I said to him, I said, "You need to be with us as an assistant coach." And so Chris joined Jim and myself, and we had some great seasons in high school before we all left, really, in some fashion for Branford High School.
Coach Ribber, tell us a little bit about the Wesleyan boys lacrosse season and the team.
Yeah, it was a really incredible season. We knew coming into the season we had high expectations. We were preseason ranked #1 in the country, which is never, as a coach, that comfortable. When you first start a season, you want to kind of be there at the end if you can, but I'd much rather be 20 or so and then try to fight your way down. So we had a big target on our back. We had an incredible senior group of 16 seniors. 9 of those guys played a lot for lacrosse for us. So we knew we were a senior-heavy team that had a lot of experience. Last year we were fortunate to advance to the national semifinals. So we had some playoff experience, So this team was really built for, this type of run. The biggest issue we have in the conference we're in, the NESCAC, it's the most competitive conference in all Division III. Any given year, there could be 5 or 6 teams ranked in the top 20 in the country. There's 235 Division III teams in the country. Gives you an idea how tough this conference really is. So we knew we had to kind of grind through the conference first. But I think the thing that's really unique about our conference is once you get it through it, you're pretty battle tested. You feel pretty good. And there'll be some teams you play, 2 times, maybe even 3 times you play in the NCAAs within the conference. And that happened with Tufts this year, who's a very, very good team. It was the incredible experience. What I'll say is, I hope every coach, particularly in the college level, that can get to that game, I hope they will have that experience in their life. It took me 23 years to get here. Again, I've enjoyed every moment from that point on, and I've really enjoyed, I really feel great about some of my assistant coaches as well, who've been with me a long time. Will Parker, who's also played with Coach May and myself, played lacrosse with us in New Haven. Really loyal assistant, been with me for almost 20 years. Rick McCarthy, who's been coaching college lacrosse for 50 years. So he's been around a long time, and his knowledge been in coaching at Wesleyan for 15 years. These guys have been grinding real hard for a long time. So for it to come together and us to get to this moment, it was incredible, and everything you hope for as a coach. And, I've been frustrated. My brother kind of breaks my chops a little bit because Jim mentioned earlier, I've been in a lot of semifinal games, but I can't get to that final game. And it's really tough. And sometimes you think you're that close, but really sometimes it feels like you're really that far away. And that's what happened. And so to finally get through and win it was incredible for the university. It's the first national championship in over 145 years in school history. So, again, I wouldn't say Wesleyan's a powerhouse in terms of what they want it to be. It's kind of what we built as we go, slowly and progressively. It's not something that happened in the last few years. It took a long time to kind of get there, and this is the kind of culmination when you have a great senior group and guys are really committed and dedicated, and you get breaks with everybody's healthy and at the right time of year. This is what could happen. So again, I hope we inspire some other smaller schools that aren't necessarily lacrosse powerhouses, that you could really do some great things if you're comes together at the end of the year.
Would you guys mind sticking around for another segment?
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
Great.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, sitting here with a panel of experts of lacrosse. Jim May, John Reba, and Frank Barron. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome
Good to
back,
be
guys.
here.
Not
Great to be
a
here.
problem. So, Coach Frank, you were telling a story about, during the break, about how you met Coach Reba when he was growing up and he didn't know it. Can you maybe tell us a little bit of that story?
In a very roundabout way, I had a connection with John's high school coach, Bobby Hartraff, who to me is still one of the great, great basketball and lacrosse coaches of Long Island, if not in the country. Bobby and I developed a relationship back in the 80s because I used to go with my mentor, Coach Guy Witten of Wilton High School, and Coach Howard Benedict of New Canaan High School, and Coach Jeff Braymeyer of Darien High School. The four of us would go over to Long Island, go to the Nassau and Suffolk clinics, and meet with the Long Island coaches. And I struck up a friendship with Bob over the years, and Bob got me to come to a basketball game because he said, if you come to this basketball game in Farmingdale, I'm going to show you a technique that I use in lacrosse as well too. And so I came with my notebook, and everything that he was doing in basketball, he said, well, I do the same thing in lacrosse. He said, the hardest pass in lacrosse is called the flat pass. It's when two players are side by side each other. In basketball, we use it a lot. He said, I employ this in lacrosse, and my kids get a lot of touches, and we get a lot of good transition breaks off of that. And so immediately I picked up on that right away, and we started doing that at hand. This is before Coach May was with me. So we started getting all of these things actually from Farmingdale. Just so happened that in the 90s, I developed a relationship with Coach Terry Jackson, who was the head coach before John. And Terry used to call me and say, Frank, do you have any snow down there in Madison? And I said, Terry, no. He said, well, can we come down and play a game against Bowdoin down in your field? And I said, we'll make it happen. So Terry came down for a couple of years, and we had, when there was snow in Middletown, there was no turf at that time at Middletown. So Coach Jackson brought his teams down to play at Hen High School, and my guys were the ball boys, and it was great. When John took over in '96, I also got a call from John who said, same thing, there was a problem with the fields at the time. Can I come down and play? And I said, absolutely. So our connection goes way back. His two assistants I've known for a long time, and I got a chance to work with John as a Connecticut Cardinals head coach starting back in 2008 with Rick McCarthy and Will Parker. So our connection, like the coaching fraternity, kind of has this weird circle that keeps evolving. And so that's the thing about lacrosse coaches, they connect.
Exactly.
And it's a lot easier to connect with college and high school coaches once you get in and start working with these guys. So the best times I ever had was going over to Long Island all those years in the 80s and 90s and learning from great Long Island coaches like Bobby Hartraff, John Danowski. These guys are still personal friends. Bill Tierney. These are the real pantheons of lacrosse that I got to meet them when they were high school coaches.
Wow. Coach Reba, you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to hear. I love being with Frank because you every time I feel like I learn something new, in terms of just the game itself and the history, and you just know why Connecticut lacrosse has come so far with some of the men we have in this room.
Oh yeah.
And and it's more about the X's and O's, like we had said earlier. They're good men, like they're good mentors. They're good, they're fatherly figures to these kids. And they teach them the entire way. They really teach them as whole athletes. And when we get these kids in college, a lot of times, again, you can't take that for granted. So we're looking for kids at our level that have coaches like Jim May and Frank Barron have been around, and we know they're going to be not only taught the right way, and we just put the finishing touches on these guys. So to hear Frank talk, again, our circles have passed so many times. I do remember the time when we were able to go down to Frank, and he was kindly enough to get us on the field down there. And it is amazing how much snow there is in Middletown compared to Madison at that time of the year. But and it was really, really nice that I was able to do that. But that, again, that's what this is all about, these relationships we all have with each other. And and we're excited to see each other. Even if I haven't seen Brian, I haven't seen Brian in a while, and when I see him, it's like I just saw him a week ago. We connect that quick, so it's really good. That stuff is really fun for me and unique as well in this game.
Coach May, you have something you'd like to add?
I'm just excited to be next to these guys. I know that I said that already, Pete.
Yeah.
But you don't understand. The knowledge and the respect that I have for the two guys to my left, second to none. I have learned so much, not as a lacrosse person or a coach,
right,
but as a father, right? As a friend, as a husband. These guys have taught me so much on those other aspects. Like we said earlier, it's not about lacrosse. And that's a big thing that I take away when I'm around the big fraternity of lacrosse coaches. But more so, like you say, the Band of Brothers.
Let's talk about the fraternity of lacrosse coaches and the Band of Brothers here for a second, and what it means to each of you guys, because obviously we are all a big family.
I just think it's a great deal that lacrosse in high schools really March to June.
Right.
But for the guys that take it serious and the guys that are really in that circle and in that big Band of Brothers, the huge fraternity, it doesn't end. It's 365, 24/7.
Yep.
That's a huge deal for guys that, like myself, who takes that, to really into heart. The loyalty is unbelievable. And, if I have a problem that has nothing to do with lacrosse, I can text John or call him up. Yeah, what do you need? And I might not have seen him for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's, what do you need? That's a big deal. So that's what I take away from it.
What do you take away from it, John?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy hit it right in the nose. I mean, again, I think we have a pretty close connection, too, because we obviously play college football. We know what that's all about, and that difficult, how it is to be a college athlete at a tough-nosed program. But more than anything else is I have this connection, again, to all the assistant coaches I have had, guys like Frank, but across the board too. Like Andy Shea, we're close with. It's so true. When if we called anybody in the country and we asked them some questions, they're going to answer everyone very truthfully and take their time. And we do the same thing. We constantly have people through the office. We're on the board all the time. We had a couple Division I schools in like the last couple of weeks, just kind of talking about the zone and what we do, and we're happy to share that information. That's what's really unique about lacrosse, because people want to help each other. Or they're not knocking football, but everybody's a little bit more protective over their playbooks and what they do. And here it's pretty open in terms of the sharing, which makes you could feel that connection because of that. So that's what I appreciate most. And when you go to recruiting events and you see coaches after a long season, you've been battling with these guys. You're best friends with these guys too. You kind of respect what they're doing, and you really take it to heart that they're trying the best they can, and they're good men more than anything else. So that part makes it really fun for me.
Frank?
I think what was most important for me was placing more emphasis on the kids. And so a long time ago, I started thinking about, what can I do to make my players better? Not just as lacrosse players, but I felt that I had kind of an ulterior motive. So that when I came up and said, it's not about lacrosse, what I really wanted from our guys was to develop as self-directed leaders. And my feeling is that if I could get a kid to be a self-directed leader on the field in a tight situation where it was going to call for him to do something that was going to be very, very hard, I could put my faith in the kids to say, we've got everything we need, X's and O's. Now it's time for us to take over and lead the other guys. And what I found was that the more I did that, the more different kids would step up at different times. I go back to the 2003 state championship game. Brian was the head coach, and Jim was the assistant, and I was the assistant. And we got really right down to the end, diagramming a play to run a particular way. But the whole idea was it wasn't going to be about lacrosse. Somebody was going to step up, and somebody did. And it was the kid that we least expected to step up, who just kept going and going and going left-handed and blew through everybody and scored when he really, really shouldn't have been there. He just took it upon himself to lead himself to that, and we were the state champions. That aside, I've always based my lacrosse on a lot of love of the kids, and a good dose of that with high school kids. You'd be surprised at how far that goes, to really love the kids and say, if you need something, I'm going to be here for you. It doesn't make any difference if there's anyone else, but I'm always going to be here for you for life. And Jim says that, and I know that's true with John because I see the Wesleyan players come back as alumni, and I think we all share that idea that, you know, we're there for them for life,
right,
if they need something. And of course, they go on and do these great things, which is incredible. And I think back to our Brantford team, where we were having kids go to schools that probably, you know, they shouldn't have been there, but somehow they were there because of lacrosse. We had one in particular, Sam Barnes. He's a starting defensive player at the University of Notre Dame for 3 years. They called us up and said, where'd this kid come from? From Brantford High School? We don't even know where that is. Here he's going out to South Bend and excelling from our program. And was all, when you talk to Sam, he'll say it was all about, you know, it wasn't about lacrosse. It was about being a self-directed leader. And I use him as an example because he's a very successful businessman now. And he too comes back and says it was everything we did was worth it.
Gentlemen, we are about to run out of time, but before we do, I personally want to thank you guys for coming on tonight. This has been an awesome half hour, and hopefully we can do it again with this group again soon. What do you say?
Absolutely.
Sounds
My pleasure.
Sounds good, Pete.
Yeah. On behalf of the panel of experts, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.